I think in order to fully understand the abuse of surveillance, of espionage, of spying that took place in this last election by the Obama administration against the Trump campaign, the Trump transition, and the Trump administration, all roads ultimately lead to Obama, but they all go through Susan Rice. I believe this strongly. I believe all roads go through Susan Rice. She was the assistant to the president for national security. She was the director of the National Security Council. She was involved in the unmasking of Americans. She's given phony justifications, whether it's Eric Prince or Mike Flynn. And she has said, look, we can only have one foreign policy at a time. And so in making that assertion, apparently in testifying to the House at some point some months ago, she basically said that the Obama administration, and presumably through her orders or at least with her involvement, was free to spy on Americans through the back door, and she knew what she was doing by this so-called incidental collection of information and unmasking of individuals, if she felt that the Trump campaign was different from the Obama foreign policy.
A champion of freedom.
You know, you're one of the greatest champions of freedom in this country, not in the English-speaking world, Mark.
Call Mark at 877-381-3811.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. All right, Susan Rice. Now, understand this is from radical left media reporters and outlets like BizPac Review, which is a left-wing site. And they are citing Mother Jones, which is a radical left-wing site. They're citing David Corn, who's a radical leftist, and Michael Isikoff, who's a liberal. Now listen to this. It was in the heat of the 26th presidential campaign that Susan Rice proved to be a pivotal figure, preventing the United States from countering Russian attempts at election meddling. Now that is a blockbuster first sentence that should draw the attention of every media outlet in this country, that should draw the attention of the special counsel and his Democrat prosecutors. This should draw the attention of every oversight committee in the House and Senate. It was in the heat of the 2016 presidential campaign that Susan Rice proved to be a pivotal figure, preventing the United States from countering Russian attempts at election meddling. Wow. It goes on. The former National Security Advisor, who chaired a number of high-ranking intelligence principals, told an official, quote, to stand down, unquote, on developing cyber espionage countermeasures because they had not been approved by President Obama. And why haven't they been approved by President Obama? She was right down the hall from him. He said Susan Rice was like a sister to him. In a book co-authored by Michael Isikoff and David Corn called Russian Roulette, the inside story of Putin's war on America and the election of Donald Trump, previewed by Mother Jones, divulges the background of the Obama decision not to aggressively resist Russian attempts at meddling in the United States election. And that is the sickening irony, ladies and gentlemen, that it was Obama and his people who refused to fight back against the Russians. It's Obama and his people that turned the intelligence agencies and law enforcement against the Republican nominee for President of the United States in order to help the Democrat nominee who had funded the dossier through her campaign in the Democrat Party. And let me remind you, that the President of the United States is the chairman of his party, in fact. He controls his party. Donald Trump controls the Republican National Committee. Barack Obama controlled the Democrat National Committee. So when the Democrat National Committee, along with the Hillary Clinton campaign, put up the money to buy a warrant, in essence, that DNC was under Barack Obama. Susan Rice was under Barack Obama. James Comey was under Barack Obama. Loretta Lynch was under Barack Obama. Let's go back. At one pivotal point during the presidential campaign, this is all new, this is crucially important. At one pivotal point during the presidential campaign, Susan Rice directly told the White House Director of Cybersecurity, Michael Daniel, to cease and desist from developing further technological options to thwart apparent Russian attempts to create havoc in the digital elections infrastructure. Got that? Got that, Mueller? And your Democrat prosecutors? Got it? The book recounts as follows. One day in late August, National Security Advisor Susan Rice called Daniel, this is the cyber security expert, into her office and demanded that he cease and desist from working on the cyber options he was developing. Don't get ahead of us, she warned. The White House was not prepared to endorse any of these ideas. Daniel and his team in the White House Cyber Response Group were given strict orders. Stand down. She told Daniel to, quote, knock it off, he recalled, as the book recounts. That was one pissed-off national security advisor, Daniel would say to one of his aides. The cybersecurity analyst would complain about the Rice incident to other intelligence officials. The book passage describes how it shook out. Quote, at his morning staff meeting, Daniel, that's the cybersecurity chief, matter-of-factly said to his team that it had to stop work on options to counter the Russian attack. Quote, we've been told to stand down. Daniel Prieto, one of Daniel's top deputies, recalled, quote, I was incredulous and in disbelief. It took me a moment to process. In my head, I was like, did I hear that correctly? Then Prieto spoke up asking, why the hell are we standing down? Michael, can you help us understand? Daniel, the cybersecurity chief, informed them that the orders came from both Rice and Monaco, whoever that is. They were concerned that if the options were to leak, it would force Obama to act. They didn't want to box the president in, Prieto subsequently said. It was a critical moment that, as Prieto saw it, scuttled the chance for a forceful, immediate response to the Russian attack, and keenly disappointed the NSC aides who've been developing the options. Now, let's digest all this. Susan Rice orders her cybersecurity team that was developing options in August, before the general election, to take on the Russians and their efforts to interfere in our election. And she told the White House cybersecurity team to stand down, quote unquote. Don't box in Obama. If you get Obama options, he's going to have to act. He's going to have to act. And what's the next point? He doesn't want to act. He doesn't want to do anything. He doesn't want to stop the Russians. And I told you why Obama would act and didn't want to stop the Russians a year ago. Remember what I told you? Because he felt sure that Hillary Clinton was going to be elected president of the United States, and he didn't want anybody saying that the election was fraudulent, that the Russians elected Hillary, you know, the sort of things they're saying about Trump. So he let them slide. Because in the end, Obama's about power, not integrity, not about elections. President Obama has been questioned by even his own former security officials for not acting more aggressively to counteract Russian active measures during the 2016 presidential campaign. As the New York Times related in an exculpatory piece, some former Obama officials now confess to misgivings about Mr. Obama's reluctance to act or speak out more forcefully, even as the evidence piled up during the spring and the summer of 2016 that the Russians hacked the Democrat National Committee, were behind the leak of damaging emails about Hillary Clinton. So who should be under investigation, ladies and gentlemen? Now, I can't read the entire piece, but they go on in this left-wing site called BizPac Review, citing Korn, who's a leftist, Isikoff, who's a liberal, Mother Jones, which is a radical, Sheet, S-H-E-E-T. Here's what else they say. Susan Rice also exhibited suspicious behavior as she departed the Obama administration. Now, you know this to be the case, but let's underscore it. The former National Security Advisor sent a cryptic email to herself, and I might add, 15 minutes after the new president, Trump, was sworn in, providing political cover to the former president regarding a meeting on Russian election interference with former FBI Director James Comey, then Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, and former Vice President Joe Biden. And that meeting occurred on January 5th. And among other things, it's been reported that Obama ordered his team to be very careful about giving classified information to the incoming presidential administration. You believe that? Especially Flynn. Because you see, ladies and gentlemen, they were spying on Flynn. Oh, you don't understand. Incidental. They were spying on Flynn. Obama despised Flynn. Rice despised Flynn. Because Flynn stood up to them many, many times during the course of the final years of his career in terms of fighting ISIS in Iran. Disagreed with the president as a 3-star general. And in this meeting, quote, President Obama began the conversation by stressing his continued commitment to ensuring that every aspect of this issue is handled by the book. Handled by the book. Intelligence and law enforcement communities, by the book. The president stressed that he's not asking about initiating or instructing anything from a law enforcement perspective. He reiterated that our law enforcement team needs to proceed as it normally would, by the book, Rice wrote to herself. Now, this is obviously an attempt to create a false record. These are not contemporaneous notes taken at the January 5th meeting. This was written on January 20th, after Trump was inaugurated. She wrote this because a light bulb went off. And she said, holy mackerel, I forgot to write a CYA. Why would you need to write? The president stressed he's not asking about initiating or instructing anything from law enforcement perspective. Because the President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen, that time Obama, and I keep saying it and saying it and saying it, Barack Obama knew a lot about what was taking place. How could he not? Much of it was in the newspaper. I know, because I pulled it together and went through it a year ago, as you recall. Much of it was in the newspaper. And don't tell me Jim Comey met with the President of the United States, including with others, and didn't inform him. Don't tell me Loretta Lynch met with the President of the United States and didn't inform him. Don't tell me Susan Rice met with the President of the United States and didn't inform him. That is simply an incredible lie. It's not possible. And they go on in this remarkable piece in this left-wing site, BizPac. It is remarkable, they write, that Susan Rice would so repeatedly turn up at critical junctures in the Russia investigation. They raises numerous questions. Why did Susan Rice issue the stand-down order? And by the way, we don't want Trey Gowdy anywhere near this investigation because Susan Rice has that fool wrapped around her finger. Well, she gave good reasons for the unmasking, I must say. Well, that Bob Mueller has enormous integrity. I don't think he's leaking at all. Wouldn't a national security advisor normally want to explore all options and go through extraordinary lengths to ensure the integrity of our national elections? And why did Rice send an email to herself that ostensibly exonerates the president in highly scripted language, as if it was dictated to her? This is highly questionable behavior from a once influential security official whose actions are reverberating from her time in the office to this day. Prosecutors, investigators, whether criminal, whether congressional, need to put the screws to Rice. Because in my humble opinion, she's obstructing and she's covering up. Just my opinion. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
So we now know what we suspected, that the Obama administration affirmatively refused to stop the Russians. And Susan Rice specifically gave the order, Obama's right-hand gal, to their own cybersecurity team that was developing options to take on the Russians, to stand down. And they did effectively nothing. A monumental scandal. This is a monumental scandal. On the one hand, the Obama administration did nothing. Nothing to stop the Russians. On the other hand, they did everything conceivable, even inconceivable, to unleash the instrumentalities of federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies and the damn FISA court against Trump world. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. And we have a prosecutor investigating Trump. Not Hillary, not Obama, not Rice, not Comey, not Lynch, Trump.